I think before I start talking about the things going on in the jail, I should tell you probably how I got started in the genesis of what happened and how God worked in my life and the life of another man to make it happen. But before I do that, I probably should tell you about 8 years ago when I took over as sheriff. Our jail was run by a private company, and technically I was in charge of it, but those people didn't work for me. They were a private company. We had a lot of problems over there. We had, y'all don't hear about it because it's in the jail, so it doesn't make the news unless it gets out of the jail. But we had full-blown takeovers of our jail. Inmates revolting against the guards, and they would take over entire cell blocks, and I'd have to call every deputy in off the street from home. My SWAT team, we had to go in there and tear gas and drive baton, and it was just horrible. It was absolutely horrible. And I was just like any other sheriff, always said, if it wasn't for that jail, being sheriff would do a good job. And to be honest with you, I didn't really have a lot of sympathy for those inmates. They broke the law, they get what they get, you go in there, you're going to do your time, and it needs to be hard time, right? But I didn't have the right perspective. And God wanted to do some things in that jail, and He wanted to use me to do it. So He had to work a miracle in me before He could work a miracle in the jail. And I just wanted to share that with you right quick. He had to work a miracle in me. He had to work a miracle in another man. His name is Del Cavazos. Many of y'all have heard Del Cavazos speak. He spoke at Holy Week this spring. And I've got a picture of Del here. Let me pull it up. Del Cavazos. I was a narcotics agent. I was a commander of the Stop Special Crimes Unit for over 20 years. And without a doubt, this is the worst man I've ever dealt with. He's connected to the cartel, a very violent man, very dangerous man. And I realized early on in trying to get him caught and put in prison that if I didn't get that done, either he was going to kill me or I was going to kill him. It was that bad. Del was so violent that when 2 Clifton police officers tried to arrest him one day, he took their pistols away from them and beat them with their own guns within an inch of their life. Very, very violent man. And I could just go on from there. He actually tried to kill one of my informants that I got into his organization. He didn't get it done, fortunately. Came close, and I got him put in prison for that attempted murder. Bad, bad man. And I was so relieved to see him go to prison. And I hope that he'd stay there forever. He got a lot of years. And he didn't do hardly anything. Within a few years, he was back out. And I was sheriff. And he approached me in the HEB parking lot and he said, "Hey, I want you to know, I ain't that guy." Of course, I had my hand on this. I didn't believe him. I didn't believe him at all. I took him to the post office, same thing. Had my gun in my hand when I saw him coming. He told me, "Hey, I ain't that guy anymore." God's working a miracle in my life. Amen. So anyway, I started thinking, well, maybe he seems very sincere about that. So I started watching Del. Good at surveillance. I was an architect, so I started watching that. Asking around, checking with people, checking with this church he's going to, checking with this pastor. And one of my good friends, Donnie Williams, was actually even mentoring me. And I started to realize, wow, God has worked a miracle. And God has turned his life around. And he laid his guns down, his anger down, and his words down at the foot of the cross, and left it there. And Del and I were worse enemies. You couldn't find 2 people that hated each other more than me and Del. And now, today, we're the best of friends. I mean, literally, we talk to each other several times a week. We eat at least once a week. We're constantly in communication. He's gone from my best friend to my best friend. And how can this happen? God touched his heart. And I saw that if God can change this man, God's capable of anything. And the more I got to know Del, I got to realize we're not that different. We weren't that different. We are both sinners. And his sins aren't any different than mine, really and truly, in the eyes of God. Sin is sin. And it helped me realize that I'm not on a pedestal, and those inmates aren't down here. When God was on the cross, who did he save? It wasn't a Pharisee. It was a sinner. It was a criminal. And God used Del Cavazos to help me realize that those people in that jail are just as important as me, you, or anybody else. Jesus died for them the same as he did for me. Once I got that in my head, once God got that through my thick skull, then he could start to use me. And I say use me. None of this is me that's happened in this jail. I want to tell y'all some great things, but none of it's me. Everything, it's 99.99% God. It's the Holy Spirit. It's 1/1000th of a percent maybe me. And I just want to be very clear on that. But God touched my heart so that I opened the door of that jail and let some things come in, bring some light into a dark place, basically. So I just wanted to share with the nexus of that. Now, right after this happened, it was Christmas Eve, and I'm sitting there and I'm finishing out, I'm reading Hebrews, Christmas Eve night. And I get to the end of Hebrews, and in Hebrews 13:3 it says, "Remember those in prison as if you yourself were in prison with them, and those who are mistreated as if you yourself were being mistreated." So I read that and I thought, well, surely that means for, that's to remember the saints, those in prison for the cause of Christ. So I read it again, I'm like, well, it doesn't say that. It just says those that are in prison, those that are being mistreated. And I read it again, and I couldn't make it say what I wanted it to say. And then I just thought, okay. I think the Lord was speaking to me there, and I thought, okay, Lord, I hear you. So I asked my wife, I said, how much Christmas dinner do we have? And she goes, well, we got enough for another. Do you want to invite somebody? And I'm like, just one? She goes, yeah, enough for just one. I said, yeah, I do want to invite somebody. She goes, who do you want to invite? I said, an inmate. And she got a look on her face. It was priceless. I said, but we can't bring the inmate here. We have to go to the inmate. So what we would need to do is we need to get our Christmas dinner tomorrow, take it to the jail, and get an inmate out and have dinner with an inmate. And my daughter and my wife were very apprehensive about it, but they reluctantly agreed. And the next day we looked up and went to the jail. And I had a guard go and get an inmate. I asked him to get a female because I figured my wife and my daughter would be a little less scared of a female inmate. We brought out a female inmate and walked her in to this big dinner that we'd spread out, on a conference table in a little meeting room in the jail. And she walked in and she didn't know what was going on. She thought she was in trouble. She was getting called to see the sheriff, right? And we told her why we were there. We were there because we just wanted to share Christmas with you. We wanted you to know that Jesus Christ loves you, and because of that, we love you, and we're here just to share the good news of Jesus Christ and to share the gospel with you and have lunch with you. And she just broke down and cried. She couldn't believe anybody cared about her. And she cried and cried, and once she finally stopped crying, we got her, and we just loved on her. We had a good meal. My daughter sang. We played Christian music. We brought some CDs and some Christmas music. And anyway, we just had such a great day. And she was so responsive to the gospel. She just absorbed it like a sponge. And I just realized that day, oh my God, all this time, I've missed this opportunity. God is showing me that these people here are hungry for the gospel. And he showed me through Del. I didn't realize it at the time, but he showed me through Del Cavazos. Those people in that jail are important, just as important as anyone else. He loves them just as much as everybody else. And so, whenever we were parting companies, the inmate was going back to the cell, she asked me if I was going to do that again next year. And I said, yeah, I think I am. And I think I'm going to try to do more next year. I think I'll try to do more than just one. And so she went back, and we talked about it, and my poor wife, there's 900 inmates out there roughly. She wasn't very receptive to the idea of cooking for 900 inmates, so I realized we needed to do some things as far as getting some help. And that's whenever I started reaching out to our local churches to see if they would come in and basically come in and bring Christmas to the inmates for the purpose of sharing the gospel, what Christmas is all about, and inviting them to accept Christ. And that's how it took off. It really took off the next year. We did a Christmas ministry, but before that, I need to back up a little bit. I took the jail back. I got the jail back. The commissioners let me have it back. We fired that private company. I got that thing back. And then all of a sudden, the people that worked in there were my people. They reported to me. Made it a lot easier to get ministries in there, get churches in there, and make some good things start happening. And so anyway, we start getting these churches coming out and getting involved in our Christmas ministry. And along the way, we brought in Mike Barber. Mike Barber Ministries. I don't know if y'all know anything about Mike Barber. Mike is sort of Billy Graham of prison crusades. I mean, he's a retired football player. John, do you remember what team he played on?
He still was.
Okay. Anyway, just a spectacular guy, very dynamic speaker. He went in the first time we brought him out there. He led right around 350 people to Christ in one day.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing? One day. We followed that up with the Christmas ministry that year. We got over 20 churches come in, and these churches adopted tanks of inmates. And tanks means just holding cells, and they range from 8 to 72. So the smaller churches would get a small tank, the bigger churches would get a big tank. And they would go in and just bring Christmas, bring the good news of Jesus with them. And it turned out to be so great. So many people accepted Christ. They got to come back then in a week or so and baptize those that asked to be baptized. And we set up water troughs out in our Sally Port. It was real cold. It was in January. And we got to do baptisms there. Let me tell you the best thing about that. Yeah, leading people to Christ, that's the best thing. The second best thing is that it wasn't always the pastor. This was the church. The church members were sharing the gospel. The church members were bringing the message. The church members were bringing the food. The church members were loving on these inmates. The church members got to come back and do the baptisms. How great is that? And it just got these churches so excited for this ministry. So anyway, it's grown. We're in our fourth year this year. And I don't even know, we've lost count of how many people have accepted Christ and how many will come back and baptized after that. But we also do a big Easter ministry now. The Cleveland Bible Church has agreed to do that, and they have exactly the right people and the right resources to do it. It's just amazing. When they show up, it is unbelievable. They literally rock the whole building. They get in there and they sing and they bring their whole band. And let me tell you, the Bible Church, they've got some talent. And they bring a message that's just every year, it's unbelievable. And hundreds every year accept Christ. And hundreds ask to be baptized. And the first year we did that, Pastor Hardhog baptized right around 200 people. It was 7 o'clock at night. He was utterly exhausted. And we baptized all the water out of 2 water troughs. There was only about that much water. Baptized so many people. It was so great. But it had an unexpected result. This wasn't my goal, but it had a result that turned out to be wonderful for me. You know those problems about them taking over the tanks and rides and guards being assaulted and all these problems we had? We used to have escape attempts every week, sometimes multiple a week. Multiple guards and deputies assaulted every week. Lawsuits, those inmates that filed lawsuits at the drop of a hat. Sometimes I get one a day. I mean, it was unbelievable how many lawsuits were coming out of there. Jail complaints, mad family members in the lobby talking about, how we're mistreating their loved one and things like that. Well, it not only worked on the inmates, it not only changed the inmates, it changed our guards. Our guards started seeing inmates in a different light. God was working on them. God was making changes in their heart. And now, I think most of our guards have a totally different perspective. They're not in there just to watch them, just to make sure they're not going to escape or make sure that they're going to be adequately punished. They're there to help them. They're there to guide them. They're there to encourage them. They're trying to minister to them. And some of the things these guards have done has just been absolutely amazing. And I'm getting letters from inmates that are out, or either in the state facilities now, or they're out in the street, praising our guards. Inmates, former inmates, praising our guards. I brought some letters here. Charlie got to see some of them. We read some of them when we talked about his Sunday school class. How amazing is that? Oh my God, I can do something like that. And all that other stuff, the riots, the assaults, the escapes, you don't have that anymore. You know, the first time I walked through that jail, whenever I got elected sheriff, those inmates circled around me and tried to jump me. And I barely got out of there. They were trying to get me, but I backed them down. I got out the door real quick. And now I can walk in there, and you're going to think I'm kidding, but those guys line up and will give me a hug. We have no adversarial relationship anymore. They know that we genuinely care about them. We genuinely want to respect their dignity. We want them to come in with their dignity. We want them to lead with it. We also want them to lead with Jesus, too. But I'll show you something here. This is pretty funny. I can find a picture. Oh, I lost the picture. Well, a lot of jails have trouble with smuggling. Most of it's drugs and cell phones and weapons. I don't know where my picture went, but it didn't make it on this presentation. I had an inmate that somehow smuggled a rose in. Female inmate. Don't know how she got the rose in jail. It's really not important, but she got it for me. Whenever I came through, she gave me that rose. And thanked me for all the things that we were trying to do to help her. And I hadn't done anything personal to help her, but she still gave me credit for creating an environment. And it, like I said before, it wasn't me, the Holy Spirit, but she brought me a rose. How she got that thing in there, I still don't know. Show you all some pictures here. Make your heart feel good. Now, in the winter months, or early spring, we have services in our Sally Port. That's our garage where we pour buses in for transporting inmates. This is our ladies. We always do our ladies first and our men second. This one's the Bible church. They come in, this is our congregation. They come in about 40 or 50 deep. They are really into this ministry. Now, this is what I was talking about. Some of the guards, man, they have bought into this big time. They will love it. And God has really, really done miracles in them as well. This lady right here, first time we had our Christmas ministry, the church came in, and everybody that first year was a little scared. You know, they see these things in jail on TV, and it's scary. So when they got in there, this church was on one side of the room, and the inmates were together, and they looked at each other, and wouldn't come. So this guard was in the picket, which is the little glass room that separates, you know, where she can see what's going on. But she's separated from them. And she sees what's happening here, and she comes out of the picket. Now, she didn't even know this thing was happening. She just happened to be on duty that day. And she comes out and starts laying hands on the inmates, calling on the Holy Spirit, and then goes over and lays hands on the church member, calling on the Holy Spirit, and they came together in the middle and started praising the Lord. These inmates told me about what had happened. I'm like, really? I'm like, you got to show me who this guard is. They were trustees, so they had a little free access inside the facility. So these trustees walked me back there and pointed her out. And now she's one of our main people that help coordinate our events there. So, and she's been promoted all the way up to sergeant now. So she's done really well. And I understand it's after 1 o'clock. I'm going a little long here, but I'll share these pictures with you before I try to wrap up. Here's Del Cavazos. I'll tell you what's really great about Del Cavazos. He was a bad man. And the people in jail only know him as a bad man. They don't know what God's doing in his life. What's really great is I have a really hard man, like a tough guy in there. It's just impossible to reach. And I walk in there with Del Cavazos, and they know who he is. And you should see the look on their face when he walks in, wondering why this guy that used to run the jail from the inside is coming to see them. You should see the look on their face whenever he starts talking about Jesus and his Christ. And he has led numerous people to Christ in that jail. I save him for the tough ones. But on this occasion, he got up and spoke in front of the ladies, and they could really connect with him because he's been right where they are. And there's our chapel. He started our baptisms there. You see, we use a water trough. He's holding them down until it takes there. This is one of our outdoor events we had in our brickyard. And this is one of our volunteers, this is Pam Preston. She works at the Female Pregnancy Center. And Pam has a similar story to Dell. Pam was going down that road too, and God worked a miracle in her life. And she's very passionate about trying to lead these ladies out of that world and into the love of Christ. I've got literally thousands of pictures just like this. I just grabbed a few so you can see them. Now this is one of our jailers here. Her name's Savannah. She was so moved by what she saw happen in the jail with the inmates. She decided that she wants to do that full time, and she has quit as of about, 2 weeks ago. And she's going to seminary full time. Yes. I thought that was a great picture because of the tattoos on the guy. See that on his arm? A lot of those are not good tattoos. God is working on you. And to build on what Scott said a minute ago, we need to, before we do anything, we need to start in prayer. Before we do any of this, we go into there right at 3 days before, and we go in there and we bring a walking group to go in there and pray over all the inmates in every tank and call on the Holy Spirit to start working on their hearts, because there's nothing that we can say or do that's going to have an effect on them. God has to touch their hearts so that they can receive the gospel. So, and it is just absolutely amazing when you see